We're going to start. Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. Would you stand for the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, he's like on a roll over here, ready to go. That's what happens when you miss a meeting, right?
He's trying to catch up here. Let the minutes reflect the members that's here this evening. And the commission members should have received the draft minutes of September the 30th, 2019, with our meeting and joint meeting with the Design Review Board. Was there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
I see none, so I'll move that they be approved.
Okay.
I'll second. Wait, let me just.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Carried, thank you. Okay. Jim must have got lost.
Don't we need him soon?
Can't really go any further until he gets here. Okay, go ahead.
So as you know, we're going to introduce a change to the Developers' Rights and Responsibilities Agreement to Meads Crossing, and that dealt with the water issue. I talked about this a couple months ago, that basically the old agreement said that they would have to provide water if the state standards said they did for their second phase, and it was kind of vague. And now that the calculations are done, we know that they won't need to because we have sufficient water to make that happen. So it's going to amend that out, just take some language out. It's going to get introduced to the council at their next week's meeting, which is going to be Monday, not Wednesday. And they're not having a meeting the following Monday because of Columbus Day. So it's going to be introduced next week. You guys will have your time to look at it, which is very basic, at your next meeting, which would be sometime in November, and then we'll adopt it in December.
Okay, we look at it in November. We won't meet, we normally don't meet in December. So is that going to affect anything?
Well, it'll be in November. I don't know when you'll be in November, won't you?
Yes.
That's when you'll do it.
Okay.
And remember, even though you can look at it and comment on it, the question is it consistent with the town's master plan? And so you realize whether the water calculations are right there. That's the threshold. So that concludes my legal report. We're almost done. Yeah.
We're down to the delegation actions, none, ordinance, none. Jim, we're down to your report.
Alrighty. So, mostly updates this month. Taneytown Crossing met with us on some mostly stormwater management issues, and also questions about using some alternative materials, which we're not completely sold on at this point. They should be resubmitting in the next week or so, so we're expecting that they'll be back on the agenda for November, hopefully for preliminary plan approval, assuming the submittal comes in fairly soon, and the review agencies obviously have time to get their letters out before our commission deadline. So they're moving forward, but a lot of engineering is involved with that site. So let's see. Also on that, in your packet, one thing I did remember to include was they did take our comments from last month, I think, under advisement very well, and in your packet are 3 different versions of the semi-detached dwelling. So, they're still similar in terms of, overall size and massing and such, but, they provided version 1 is pretty much what we saw initially. And then version 2, they've given us gable dormers and still a shed porch roof, but they've given us tapered round columns on the porch. And then version 3, they've given us hip dormers and a hip porch roof, and then kind of more of a pier type porch column. So I think they did a nice job
Yes.
of, listening to our comments and taking that under advisement with their architectural design at least. So we'll be hopefully seeing them again. Hopefully they'll be in a position to be requesting preliminary approval. Tannery Barn has had permission from the county to hold a couple of events there, even though they don't have their UNO yet. Most recently, they had an event this past Friday night, kind of something like an open house sort of thing. Their utility work is going on with the water line, and if you've seen the little backhoe that they've got out front, it kind of can explain why it's taking so long to get through the rock. So they apparently are going at a very slow pace to get the water line hooked up. So it looks like the features they have installed there, the curbing on the downhill side of the driveway seems to be doing what it's intended to. And I went out there in a pretty heavy rain, and it did seem to be directing the runoff well away from the buildings and the pool downhill. I'm hoping that will get better as they add gutters and downspouts on the rear of the building that are going to be discharged underground into the drainage swale at the rear of the property rather than sheeting across the driveway. So hopefully that will only improve as they get closer to completion.
Jim, I'm sorry, is the neighbor happy? Have you talked to him? I mean, is he thinking that it's moving along fast enough for him, or?
I have not spoken to him.
Okay, I was just curious.
But I take that as good news because previously he had been calling fairly regularly, especially during rain events.
Okay,
And I think that his silence indicates that he's not experiencing the difficulties.
right.
Does the neighbor expect all water to be diverted from his property?
No, it's, and we've made it clear that it's just what we're shooting for is for them to not adversely affect him, to not be sending more water down on his property than was
Other than the rain?
before.
Yeah,
So I think we've made that clear.
okay.
Let's see, this one wasn't a site plan, but just because people notice it. The city's gazebo project down in Memorial Park, we've obviously had some construction delays. It's taken much longer than was originally expected, and that has to do with the electrical outlets that were specified for the columns. So the code requires these rather large covers on outdoor outlets now so that you can plug something into the outlet, leave it plugged in, and have the cover still make it weather tight. So the covers that code requires now stick out probably 5 inches from the receptacle. And the contractor advised that they saw potential cracking concerns on the column sleeves that would happen if people bumped these outlets, which is really very likely with them sticking out from the columns that far. So while it's very disappointing that nobody at the manufacturer of the gazebo or the contractor called that to our attention before construction started, that's kind of where we are. So we've come up with a compromise position on how to locate the outlets that hopefully will look decent, and that should be moving along again pretty soon. So once they get moving, it should only be a couple weeks before it's wrapped up. Roberts Mill Run Stormwater Project is moving ahead, and that project, as you know, includes the bridge connecting the two halves of O'Brien Avenue. We had a pre-construction or a construction progress meeting out there this morning, and the rebar for the northern bridge abutment footer is in place, and they should be pouring within the next week for that footer, and then they'll be moving across the channel to the south side to work on that footer. So far, things have been going very well. We've only had one complaint about noise, which we think was just that they had a fuel truck there before 7 a.m. And that's the only thing that we can think of that might have generated noise, because they haven't really been starting construction before 7 a.m. So we've had one complaint there, and there was a cable line that was, there was a bad locate. The line was supposed to be up under the pavement on O'Brien Avenue, but apparently the cable installer had run it past the end of the pavement along the barrier at the dead end, I guess, rather than boring across the road as was supposed to have been done. And, well, the contractor found it. But those really, for a project of this scope, so far things have been going very smoothly. The county's been really good with their management, and the contractor has worked with the county on these projects, on other retrofit projects around the county, and apparently has done very well with them. So we're cautiously optimistic on that one. And the longer term schedule looks like the bridge deck should be under construction probably by February. So it's really going to be changing things around a lot out there. But they're apparently waiting for most of the weir wall to be in place before they start excavation for the main pond. I was expecting things initially to be the work to be kind of concurrent between the excavation for the pond and the weir wall, but their sequence kind of has it a little bit the opposite of what I would have expected. And also we do have some terracotta sewer line that is going to be replaced with plastic, so that should help with some of our inflow and infiltration issues out there. Moving on, we've got a second stormwater management project going on for Trevanian Terrace. Some of you who have been around for a while might recall Lot 45 of Trevanian Terrace. The developer had come in with a number of different iterations for a subdivision on that lot. Originally it was slated for some apartment dwellings, which were never built, and then we came to realize through further study that a good part of the property actually falls within a floodplain. So the city purchased the tax lien on the property several years ago because the developer declared bankruptcy and let the property sit. So we acquired that thinking that we might be doing a stormwater project there. We might have opportunity to. So that's coming to fruition now. And that project's going to convert the very small pond that is on that parcel to a larger wet pond that's going to take up almost the entire 3-acre parcel. And it's going to be similar to what we're doing at Roberts Mill Run, that'll have mowable slopes, so it'll be easier to maintain. And then a portion will stay wet all the time, but during rain events, the majority of it will fill up depending upon the magnitude of the rain. So for that one, there's going to be a community meeting at the Taneytown Library on November 12th. And that's just part of the county's outreach on those projects to let the adjacent property owners know what's coming.
Will there be a fence around that wet pond?
At this point, we don't have one planned, so we may end up doing that, but the ponds are designed so that there's even once you get in the pond, there's a very gradual walkable slope before it will drop off steeply. So you would have to be going in, like, even for an adult, you'd have to be going in pretty deep into the water before you get to the point that it's a steeper drop off. So we have talked about fences, but at this point we're not specifying them. And with Trevanian Terrace, that one is still in conceptual design stages, so we're not nearly as far along with that one, but we'll probably have that fence conversation there as well.
My concern is it's in the vicinity of 2 schools, and one of them being an elementary
Yes.
school.
Right, so that's, and we have had some conversation with the school facilities folks about there being a fence at least on that side. I think the school has a preference for that. So that, we'll have that conversation again when we get farther along in the design. Let's see. That's really about it. I had noted on my report that we'd only done 2 new home zoning certificates, and of course, right after this went out, we got 5 more. So, turned out to be kind of what's been about an average month. I mean, Meads Crossing has really taken down lots at a faster rate than we have seen for quite a few years. So that is about it for my monthly report. Let's see. Just roll right into
Move right on to,
projects. Okay. Not a whole lot more to update you on. Bollinger Park, CDM Smith, our engineer who's doing the majority of the design work out there, is working out an agreement with Carroll Land Services, or CLSI, to do the forest stand delineation and forest conservation stuff, because they are very familiar with working with Carroll County and doing that per the county's requirements. So that's going to be sort of subbed out to CLSI. And I'm awaiting essentially a proposal from CDM Smith. While we had fired or gotten moved away from Aero Engineering some years ago and decided that CDM Smith was going to be our design engineer, we apparently never did a formal agreement with them to be able to track everything through a project code and things like that. So I'm awaiting that, and hopefully I'll have that in hand, and we'll have that blessed by the mayor and council at their November meeting. But what that really means for us is that we should see work on Bollinger Park, the pace picking up. So
so will anything on Baldwin Park come back to us on phase 1? Or are we finished?
no, it'll come back to you because we've given concept approval, but that's as far as it's gotten.
Okay.
And as we started to dig into it a little bit more, we realized that we had never executed an agreement with CDM Smith to do it other than under general consulting services. So, let's see, under construction phase projects, Compassionate Care and Wellness is charging ahead with that. They've, Mylars were circulated. I'm waiting to see their grading permit, which I think they have applied for, but it hasn't come to us yet. And the grading permit's going to be necessary for the slabs they have to put in for the large HVAC outdoor units that are going to be on the rear and the west side of the building.
Did they figure out how to get them back there yet?
No.
I was just curious.
Potentially, the most likely plan at this point is for them to put some steel matting down on the west side of the building on the top of the slope, and have it down there for, I think, 2 days, and coordinate all the trucks and everything to bring the units in, have a crane back there to offload them and set them in place, and get the trucks out and get the matting pulled up as soon as the crane leaves. So they're anticipating like a two-day execution of all that. Now that probably is going to require a red line because the area that they want to drive on is outside of the disturbed area. I don't anticipate there being any problems with Carroll County grading inspectors or Soil Conservation District to do a red line, just for them to be able to mat it, bring the stuff in, take the trucks out and pull up the matting. But it will be something that'll come back through my office. Nothing really new to report on Meadowbrook, other than the developer is talking about starting the closeout process on Section 4B. They've met the threshold percentage of units that have use and occupancy permits in 4B, so they will be able to put the top coat of blacktop down, and the intent is for them to get that paved before winter, because we usually like to have any infrastructure, we call it, over winter, so that we'll see if we have any cracks or heaves or anything that reveal themselves over the colder weather. So they will be looking to kind of close out that section sometime in the spring. Nothing new really on the rest of the projects, so unless there are other questions.
I will say I went up to Meadowbrook just because when we did the tour, they hadn't finished that really large house yet, and I wanted to see that finished. And they do have it open as a model now.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. But it was interesting because the gentleman in the townhouse, one of the first things he mentioned before I actually spoke to him was the pool that they're going to be having. So it's on the top of their head too. So
About down on the, down at the park, what's going on back on that 20-plus acres?
oh, the fill dirt. That's where they're putting that fill dirt over there at Memorial.
That's all they're
Memorial
doing is putting fill dirt in there?
for right now,
It's-
right? Just to get ready.
Yeah, at Memorial Park, that's gonna be, part of that 22-acre parcel that we own is gonna be brought up to more level than it is. Right now, the whole area pretty much slopes down towards the stream. And we're gonna use the overburden from the Roberts Mill Run Stormwater Project. And it's gonna be primarily once they really start the serious excavation for the pond portion. That material is gonna be transported over to Memorial Park, and we have a grading plan for the park. And basically, it's gonna give it a little bit more of a plateau closer to the developed part of the park, and then it'll have a little bit steeper drop off towards the stream. So we're bringing it up to be a little bit more level so that as we move forward to develop that property, we'll have a more level surface to begin with for playing fields and the parking lot that's planned for there.
I was asked if they were going to start to improve that piece of ground there, and I said I didn't know what they were doing.
I mean, for right now, what's happening is they've scraped off the topsoil because we expect the overburden from the stormwater project is gonna be very rocky. So we've scraped the topsoil off, stockpiled it, and,
That's the part that they were seeing
right, right.
when you
Exactly.
were pushing the topsoil.
Right,
Right.
and there's, erosion and sediment control set up on Memorial Park as well. So, yeah, it certainly looks like there's something happening out there.
Yeah.
And there is, but it's not, the actual park development at this
Okay.
point. Although the Parks and Rec Advisory Board has requested that the mayor and council move the development of that 22 acres up, higher in the capital improvement plan priority. So that's kind of in the works right now. Mayor and council is reviewing the Parks and Rec CIP. So we're hoping that we may end up budgeting money for the design for that in the next year or so. It may not be FY21, but it'll be made a higher priority than it was with the original draft of the capital improvement program. Okay. Anything else?
Is that all you have then, Jim? Okay, I guess we already heard from Jay, so county side, Cody?
Good evening, everyone. Apologize for my voice. I'm battling a cold, so just bear with me on that side. But not too much to update you guys on since we last spoke. The comprehensive rezoning for the commercial, industrial, and employment campus has completed its review, and so now we're turning our focus to the industrial, commercial, now we're turning our focus. Yes, to the industrial and commercial and employment campus. And there will be an open session on the 19th of November for the county commissioners to overview that section of the plan. We're also in the middle of our triennial update for the water and sewer master plan, as well as working on an update to our hazard mitigation plan. So meeting with all the municipalities and getting an overview of some of the issues that could take place and how we could better prepare for those. And lastly, looking forward, we'll be gearing up for the census here coming up in January. So be on the lookout for those things. But other than that, not really too much to update. Is there any questions I can answer for you guys? All right, well, thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to other business. George, you have anything?
Minutes, if you have had a chance to read the minutes.
Yeah, we did, we approved them.
It was George, first by George, second
George.
by me.
Yep.
We already had them.
We covered that.
Oh, okay. Who made the motion?
George, and
did,
then
okay.
I seconded it.
Okay, sorry, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna let you know, I forgot.
George noticed that his name was missing, so he figured it was okay.
Alrighty.
And since he wasn't here, he
And
read it best.
roll call, that was all covered. Okay, George, you have anything?
I think Taneytown can be proud of itself in how it's progressing. No financial problems. All departments are working. I think we can be proud of ourselves.
You're right, George, you're right. That brings on, maybe give us update on the city managers, where we stand with that, and also with the director of Parks and Rec. How we doing with those areas?
Well, interviews for the city manager begin next month. At this point, I don't know if there's going to be one round of interviews or multiple rounds, but I would imagine that the mayor and council will be, or the mayor will be making a recommendation to council, I would think probably by December. I don't think there will be time between the interview dates and the November meeting for a decision to be made, but I could be surprised, who knows. As far as the Park and Recs director position, we received about 45 or 46 resumes for it. There were some that actually had some really good Parks and Rec experience. We also had a number of folks who had educational background, but maybe not work experience in the field. And then we had a lot of folks who had some level of volunteer experience, like with a different, sports league or something like that, or sports program, but not really the professional experience or educational background. But there were probably, a good half dozen candidates that we want to take a closer look at. So I don't have a schedule yet for when we're going to bring people in to interview. The mayor has asked Councilman Hale, who's the Parks and Rec liaison, to join us with reviewing the resumes. And I know he and the mayor had met. We're planning to meet this past Saturday, to go over them and compare notes. So, and the mayor and I have already kind of talked about our top choices. So hopefully the three of us need to get together and narrow it down for an interview list, and hopefully that'll happen in the next week or two. So.
Okay. Barry?
Nothing from me.
Good.
I don't have anything.
Holly? Jim? Okay, any comments or anything from the floor? Okay, it looks like our next meeting is November the 25th. And not hearing anything else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Carried.
Awesome. Look at that.